One of those writing rules bandied around is show, don't tell. So today I'm going to do something I've never done here before, and that's to actually show you rather than tell you about the writing process for a story, which I've done in English many times, but never in Italian. Admittedly, as I was recording it, I was taking a little more care than I usually do, because I didn't want it to look completely chaotic on the screen. The first draft took a little over an hour to complete, but it's speeded up to 5 times actual speed. By the way, this is last week's story. On the right you'll see a list of phrases. These are just prompts that I've taken from books, but I did in fact include a lot of them pretty much as is. These are where I find the story, as I'm a discovery writer. I'm going to comment as I go along, so if you'd rather just concentrate on the visuals, time for sound off. So I'm not sure I've got the right word with coperto, so I'm checking it out first. Notice how I check several ways and find out I was nearly right, just one letter out. Again, grugno, I'm not sure I have the right word, and I don't, but I'm close. There will be lots of these, but I always try to get the word first, before resorting to looking it up. Now I'm checking a whole sentence, because who doesn't get a little unsure when they're invoking the mighty subjunctive? It's the silly little things that take up time, like should I contract buona idea or not? And mixing up casa and caso, and it taking far too long for my brain to work out exactly what I've done wrong. I always get these mixed up, soffice and sottile, but turns out neither seems to be the best word. You'll notice as we go further that some of the choices I make here don't end up being the final choice, but that's normal when writing. Ah, imperfect or passato prossimo. I guess you only forget once. It's not an ongoing thing. now an auxiliary verb dilemma. And finally a title. Day 1 done. Okay, second day. Actually the next day, and another hour of toil. The first thing was to get rid of that Spanish word I noticed the moment I stopped the first recording. I've also added some more words to the list of prompts that I might be able to shoehorn into the story somewhere. Let's see how that goes. Frushi. Yeah, we'll be coming back to that later. Here I'm trying to find the right way to say on the front line. This one's a bit of a journey to find the correct phrase. Looks like there are a number of ways of saying it. Did you notice the Spanish there again? I didn't. Not at this point, anyway. Avevo bisogno. This one's going on a back and forth journey too. Okay, done with the prompts. Now I'm going to open up Word and check that I haven't made any silly mistakes. You'll notice that first I try to work out what the error is without looking at what Microsoft suggests. There is one here in the end that I cannot work out, and that's because I got the verb slightly incorrect and ended up disappearing rather than shooting. Next, I look at the translation to English. If there is anything here that doesn't sound right in English, I go back and look at the Italian. It could just be a crappy translation by Microsoft, or an actual error. See how I can change the Italian in the box to see if I can get the right phrase rather than going back to the original page. Then I flipped it to see what came up that might be a better translation. Or not. See how I check everything unless I know it's right, and often ignore what Microsoft has done. It will pick the most common way it thinks of saying things, when there are many other ways things can be expressed. Just like when a large language model takes an average of all the resources to give you an answer to a question. So you shouldn't necessarily accept what it says as being what you should write. Fosse attaccato versus venisse attaccato. Sometimes it's a guessing game as to which one is better. I hope I chose the right one. Ah, here's frusci. Or shall I say frusci? Un problema per volta was a phrase I got from a book, so I know it can be used. Alla volta is also correct. Compresi sounds more Italian, I think, which is why I changed that. But it's not something I would automatically think of because English pushes me a different way. Now I'm trying to find out if there's a significant difference between ammazzare and uccidere. Turns out that uccidere can be used in every circumstance, whereas ammazzare is more of a real intent to kill thing with significant violence. You learn something every day. In preda al panico is something I've seen many times before. It just didn't come to mind when I was writing, and it does make it better. Next, I'm letting Word read it to me, with me reading along, which you won't hear, to check if there are any places where I might get the stress wrong. I don't always do this, which is probably a mistake, as I sometimes end up recording a line twice when I'm not sure. There's only one word here, leggero, which I naturally follow how leggere is stressed without thinking, which is wrong.
In piena notte era difficile vedere qualsiasi cosa, ma un mostro colore nero, nero e più nero, impossibile. Non volevo dargli la caccia.
Day 3. About 1 week has passed, and in that time I have been contemplating changes I want to make. I've made a list of these because doing them one at a time and making multiple recordings would have been a pain. So I'm going to add those in first, and then I'll do another pass through the text and make a few extra tweaks. I changed immediatamente for subito because I rarely see the direct translation from English, although, again, it's what comes to mind for me first. I actually looked it up and found that apparently immediatamente is used in more formal situations, maybe like a workplace. You must do that immediately. And subito is more of an informal term. Also, some of these things have come up whilst reading. Like I saw con cautela in a book and thought, that would be better in that story. And of course, riuscire. It's never the first thing that comes to mind without something prompting me about it, because we always learn potere, or the equivalent in other languages, first, and that's what sticks. I need to get better with that one. Had to change back to the English keyboard to get the colon. Don't know where it is on the Spanish keyboard. Day 4. Another couple of days on, and this is the last pass before recording. Again, I have a list of changes I want to make. Once again, poco lontano, I saw whilst reading. I went back on Prima because it came up on the next line again. So I had to change it to something different. And then I do another pass through the text and a final check in Microsoft Word for any silly errors and translation missteps. You'll notice in the translation that it puts paw for Zampa rather than leg. That's because it can be either, which can be confusing. Zampa is only an animal leg, not a human one. I didn't actually make any changes during recording or editing, so that's it. I'll put a link to the recording of the story in case you haven't seen that one yet.